What's up, y'all? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the latest episode of Gear for Dummies. Now, this is the series where, as the name implies, I'm going to be taking several items of tactical gear. I've already done plate carriers, I've already done chest rigs, and today we're going to be talking about probably one of my personal favorite items of kit. But I'm going to take all these items, all the associated subjects, I'm going to try to trim everything down for somebody who's just getting into the tactical world, just getting into that prepared citizen mindset, because there's a lot of stuff out there that a lot of people just don't understand, and a lot of the guys who are training or promoting this stuff, they're coming at it from a certain mindset, and not everybody is from that background or even really understands what they're talking about. And I've seen this many, many times, which with this series I'm hoping to alleviate some of that. Now, as I said, today we're going to be talking about probably my personal favorite piece of tactical kit, if I can get my words straight. That is going to be battle belts. Guys, this is probably the most important, the most versatile, and arguably the coolest piece of tactical kit that you will ever put together for yourself. Now, the reason I say that is because battle belts, the concept is as old as warfare itself. In fact, I've read a lot of theories that the origin of a belt itself was actually not to hold one's pants up, but rather to carry one's weapons. Because think about it, back in the old days, you're talking back in ancient Greece, even actually before that, ancient Egypt, ancient Samaria, biblical times, you had to be armed. The world was dangerous. And not only was it dangerous, there was a bevy of threats out there that would instantly end you given an instant's opportunity. I'm talking bandits, I'm talking opposing armies, I am talking animals, any number of threats out there. And many of these threats were able to be contained or defeated by the use of weapons. And back then, you had to carry a lot of weapons. Let's go down the line a little bit real quick. A little short history lesson before we get into the actual battle belt. Now, people carried swords. Fairly obvious. I mean, pretty common back in the old days. Well, if you could afford one, they were pretty expensive. Maybe you had an axe. More common tool. It could be turned into a weapon very easily. The Vikings loved them. Not that I would know anything about that. Also, you had your knives. Various types of knives. You had fighting knives, you had paring knives, you had your camp chore knives, you had hunting knives. Any number of knives. Plus, you had to have a whetstone to sharpen all those blades. You would put all that on your belt. And this concept really carried down through the ages. It's one of the reasons why if you watch movies like, say, The Lord of the Rings, or other movies set in the medieval period, or even up to the modern day, you'll find very ornate, very thick, very sturdy belts being worn by very prominent people, usually by powerful warriors. Those were not meant to hold up pants, those were not meant to fasten tunics tight, those were not meant really for any clothing reason. They're meant to carry weapons. They're meant to carry your sword. Swords are heavy, especially depending on what type you've got. They're meant to hold your knife, they're meant to hold your tools. And in the modern day, it's kind of the same concept. Now, the most obvious form of a battle belt, you could say, is a policeman's duty belt. Anytime you see a cop walking around, they've always got that belt on. Now, they might be wearing body armor, they might be wearing some kind of tactical vest, depending on the situation and which department they're with. But one thing that no cop is ever without, especially a beat cop, is his duty belt. Now, a duty belt can carry your pistol, it carries your spare ammo, it carries your cuffs, it carries your radio, it carries your pepper spray, it carries your taser, it might carry some snacks, some miscellaneous pouches, you may have some medical on there. The belt carries everything that particular officer may need over the course of a certain day or in the execution of his duties. And the same concept goes for a battle belt. Battle belts as a modern concept were really only adopted in the last 15 to 20 years or so during the global war on terror. The U.S. military kind of got away from the idea of battle belts around World War II Korea time frame. They switched to, I talked about this in my chest rigs video, they switched to something called an H harness or an Alice harness. They basically turned a shoulder-mounted harness, which also had a hip belt attached to it. It was about this thick. You could attach any number of things to it. They had the old Alice system back then. It was a precursor to the modern-day Molly. But the idea was you didn't really need a belt to hold your gear, to hold your weapons, because let's face it, it gets heavy, and if you're putting all that stuff on the same belt that actually is holding your pants up, eventually your britches begin to sag. I mean, let's just admit it. That's why a lot of times these days you'll have an actual wear belt and then a carry belt or a battle belt. And so the concept kind of got away from us about the early 60s into the 80s, Going to the 90s, it made sort of a short comeback. Guys would start wearing pistols on their belts. Really during Global War on Terror, when, ironically enough, plate carriers became truly prevalent, the concept kind of revived itself. People started realizing that, you know what, if I load down my plate carrier with all kinds of grenades, all kinds of mags, I got stuff on the cummerbund, I got stuff on the back, and plus my armor's already in here, that's a lot of weight. I mean, I've seen guys that try to hold everything on their actual plate carrier or their gear, whatever the case may be, and those setups can weigh 40, 50, even 60 pounds. It's a lot of weight, guys. And if you're wearing that all day long, or especially during multiple operations, or if you're out in the field rocking and rolling for days on end, that starts to wear on your shoulders. Your shoulders are actually not designed to carry weight for extended periods of time. Now, if you work out a lot, I'm getting a little more into this, but if you work out a lot and really condition yourself, your shoulders can lift a lot of weight, they can hold a lot of weight for a short duration, but you really can't carry it very long. It's just not the way the human body is built. I mean, think about how our body is structured. There's really nothing up here that requires your body to have any sort of structure to hold a huge weight for any length of time. This is why if you backpack a lot, or if you're like me back in high school, I carried a backpack around all the time that had all my books in it. I hated going to my locker. And what you'll do is you'll start to stoop. You'll start to get shoulder pain. I had back pain for the longest time because of this. It really affects your musculature. It affects your bone density. It affects your bone growth. Pretty sure that's why I have a pretty bad S-curve in my back. But whatever the case may be, the human body, especially the shoulders, are not designed to carry weight for extended periods of time. On the other hand, one of the best load-bearing portions of the human body is the pelvis. That big, wide bone that holds your legs together, keeps your spine from flopping around like a wet noodle, keeps us upright. One of the true miracles of modern evolution or intelligent design, whatever your belief may be. But the pelvis and the pelvic girdle, that musculature, that structure that's around the pelvis, works really well for carrying weight for long periods of time. It is literally holding up all of your upper body, and if you're a big guy like me, that's a lot of weight. And the great thing about the pelvis is not only can it support weight for extended periods of time, but it has those wings, has the bone structure, which forms our hips, and then the musculature that wraps around it forms a nice sturdy platform if you're going to set something in a ring shape like a belt, and it will sit right on your hips if you adjust it properly and you have it fitted, and it can sit there for a long period of time. It usually won't move very much depending on what kind of activity you're doing, and your body can just support that weight for a long period of time, and it can support a lot of weight, especially if you're a well-conditioned person and you're in really good shape. Now, I'm not in the best of shape, I'm working on that, but if you're, like, say, a Tier 1 operator, a career soldier or officer, or you're just really into fitness and you're really into that prepared mindset, you'd be surprised how much weight your hips can carry for a long time. Now, that's where we enter, again, the battle belt concept. The original idea of a battle belt was to take all that weight that was on an operator or a soldier's plate carrier, take it off his shoulders and put it on his hips, where the weight can be distributed more evenly and carried for longer periods of time. And also, this allowed soldiers to carry more weaponry, more ammo, more medical. It was a better place to put certain things. I mean, think about it. If you've got stuff scattered all over your plate carrier, once you pack that sucker deep enough and hard enough, you really can't get to certain things. And some things you really want to be able to get to. And so in my personal setup here, I'll go from what would be my right side. I've got my 1911 Kimber in a T-Rex Arms Ragnarok holster. Now this is sitting on a Safariland mid-ride adapter. We'll get into that later, why this is such an awesome piece of kit. It's also sitting on a QLS system. This allows me to, in fact, let me just see if I can do it. If I push these tabs down here on the bottom, and yes, this gun is safety checked, I can take that holster right off. The great thing about that is I can have this one adapter with the receiver or that piece of the QLS system, and I can actually have multiple holsters. Like, let's say I don't want to rock my 1911 today. Maybe I've got another holster with this same adapter on it. Maybe I want to rock my Glock today. Maybe I don't want a pistol at all. Maybe I want to put a hard case on there. Maybe I just want to switch between pistols and between pistol platforms. Maybe I want a different holster. This is a level 1 holster. Now, level 1 holster means there is no retention at all on this holster. I can just grab the gun, out it goes, ready to rock and roll. And there's good things, bad things when it comes to those holsters. I'll touch on that in a later video. But this is just what I carry. This is usually my range belt and my general purpose zombies rising, Russians falling from the sky getup. Now, I will change this up depending on the situation, but this is just the generic grab-and-go kit. I keep doing that. Put that on there. And also I have a thigh strap on here. Thigh strap, if you've ever watched one of the old westerns, it's along the same lines as those old rawhide thongs that cowboys used to lash to their holsters. Basically, this fastens your holster to your leg, keeps this holster from moving, and that's really important because, one, it's not flopping all over the place when you're running or digging into the dirt when you go down prone, but more importantly, when you go to draw this handgun, see, that was nice and smooth because this hand is securing the holster. Now, if I wasn't holding this, if this was just sitting on my hip, that holster wants to do this number. It wants to pull up. It wants to pinch my gun. So the thigh strap actually secures this to my leg, so that way whenever I go for this handgun, which, let's face it, if I'm abandoning my rifle to go for my secondary, I'm in a world of hurt. I really need this handgun. So when I go to draw this, it's nice and smooth, it stays flush with and tight to my leg, pistol comes out, I can punch out and present, I'm good to go. Whatever the situation is, well, maybe not good, but you get my drift. Now, moving on. And also, you may notice that I keep this part of the belt slick. That's because I don't want anything interfering with my draw. I do the same thing on the right-hand side of my plate carrier. I have a knife up front, my radio in the back. Nothing is in the way of my arm going down to reach this secondary because, again, when I need a pistol, I really need a pistol. Anyway, moving on. I have my IFAK, my med kit, medical supplies, whatever you want to call it. And this is right here where I can just work these zippers, open this up, or a friend can, whichever the case may be. And I love these 511 med kits because everything is secured inside these mesh pockets. Now, you can have stuff just sitting loose in here. Sometimes I'll have that. Maybe I'll stuff a couple extra bandages in here or what have you. But just inside here, I'm not going to pull it all out. I've got nitrile gloves. I've got some Celox coagulant agent. Underneath there, I've got some Israeli bandages. Up here, I've got some muslin bandages. I have a tourniquet in here. It's a rat's tourniquet, so hopefully I never have to use it. It's not the best thing in the world, but it fits into the med kit a lot easier. Also, I've got a stitch kit. I have scissors for cutting away clothing. I've got more Celox. Got a lot of good stuff in here that hopefully I'll never have to use, but again, if you need it, you really need it. And you notice I put that in the small of my back. This would be right about the 4 or 5 o'clock position. That's because I want this to be within reach of either hand, preferably this hand, but I can also reach it with my left hand. I want it out of the way of my pistol draw, but also I want it in an area towards the small of my back, so that way if I'm working with another person, let's say one of my buddies that I train with, or if I'm in an active shooter situation and the police show up, I can hopefully link up with them and help out in doing what they need to do. Or in any other situation, maybe it's just another concerned citizen. People can see this. It's got this X, or not X, but cross on here. And you can see this and see that it's a medical kit. So if you need something from me, now this is my individual first aid kit, IFAK. This is meant to be used on me, by me, or by one of my personal friends. Now someone else may need this. I may have to open this up and work on someone. Maybe not one of my buddies if we're out at a riot or civil unrest or active shooter situation. We may not be injured, but a lot of other people are. And now when we're operating as a group, me and my buddies, we have a medic. We have somebody there with medical training, with medical supplies, but I don't have that. I'm not nearly as skilled as most of these people are. Maybe I will have to pull these medical supplies out and help someone else other than myself. And that goes true for anybody. And also, one thing to think about, since this is your individual first aid kit, if you have medical requirements, like if you have medication, if you can't have certain things, if you are, let's say, diabetic, if you have medical needs that are not suited by a basic bare bones IFAK or medical kit, you really need to pack your IFAK with what you need. Because remember, this is meant to be used on you. Hopefully not used on somebody else. The original intent of this is to be used on you, or by someone else. But anyway, moving on. Medical, you gotta have it. Have a lot of it. Have it where you can reach it in a hurry, because again, if you need it, you really, really need it. Now, moving on from my med kit, I have a dump pouch. This is an underutilized piece of kit. I see a lot of people abusing these or just outright ignoring them. This one can actually roll up. In fact, I may just go ahead and do that. What I usually keep in here is gloves, because for one thing, if I'm throwing this on, I'm probably all kitted out or close to it, and I'm probably going to want these whether I be on the range, whether I'm doing training, doing airsoft. I love these in airsoft. Keeps my hands dry when I start to sweat. And if I have to rock and roll for real, hopefully it never happens, but just in case, I've got them. Now what a dump pouch is actually meant to do is, let's say you're in the middle of a firefight. I think the Marine Corps pioneered these. Say you're in a firefight and you've got some extra mags. Maybe your gun just ran dry, you just reloaded, now you've got an empty magazine. Now if you follow Army doctrine, you just drop that on the ground, move on with your life, keep doing what you need to do. Now for a civilian, you can't really do that unless you've got a huge supply of magazines at home and you're using those cheap throwaway aluminum GI mags. I like Magpul mags. These are expensive. About 15, 16, almost 20 bucks a piece right now with inflation and all that. So you really want to keep these. And not only that, but if you have an opportunity, let's say you're pulling security on a piece of property during civil unrest, as I had to do a couple times during 2020. You have a base of operations, or if you're operating out of your home or out of your vehicle, if you have somewhere where you can potentially go back and secure more ammunition and reload an empty magazine, or even if you're bugging out and you're playing to live off the land, or you and a group of like-minded individuals are out there surviving, again, zombies and Russians, whatever the case may be, if you ever have an opportunity to reload these, and yes, this is full in case nobody noticed, I'm just using it for demonstration effect, but if you have an opportunity to reload these, it's really good to have these on hand. Like if you can use loose ammunition, if you have stripper clips, anything like that. But anyway, the idea behind a dump pouch is you have an empty magazine, or even a partial magazine, you need some place to put it. Just drop it in there. Now this is, I believe, a Condor pouch. This can hold, I know for a fact, at least 7 or 8 magazines if they're empty. If they're partial and they're rattling around, I can usually get about 7 or 8 in here before they start bouncing out. It's just too full. And if I really wanted it to, I can undo this Velcro and I can roll this guy up. Got a little flap there. And I can stow this out of the way. It takes up a lot less room, but I like to leave it open personally. And I've seen a lot of guys at the range, especially in classes or at competitions or something, they'll throw water bottles, snacks, candy wrappers, whatever in here. Anything but loose empty mags. I don't like to do that. Maybe I'll throw a water bottle in here once in a while, but I usually like to keep this empty. Now on to the important stuff. Now I'm a right-handed shooter, so I always have to, I would like to keep my secondary or my pistol on my strong side. Now most people, over 90% of the guys I know, will do this. You want to be able to draw that secondary really quick, get it into action, present it, get it on target, fast as you possibly can. I've seen a few guys that like to wear it cross draws, where you have your strong side secondary weapon on your opposite hip. It works kind of like a shoulder holster. I actually like wearing it like this when I wear my long barrel revolver when I'm out hunting or hiking, because you have to reach over to your opposite hip, draw the weapon, present it, and then you're in action. Now again, soldiers don't do this, most police don't do this. I wouldn't recommend doing this on a battle belt setup, maybe your EDC, and everybody's biomechanics are different. If it works for you, go for it. But most of the time, you don't want to do that. You want your secondary weapon on your strong side. Now, on your support side, or your weak hand side, you want ammunition. And the way I've got this set up is these 3 mag pouches would sit right about the 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock position. You want it where if you have your rifle up, in fact, one second, let me grab this guy. Okay, so if you have your rifle up, and, oh no, I'm out of ammunition. Now again, retain your magazine if possible. If not, do the old Costa flip. Flick it to the side. Knock that empty magazine out. And you want to be able to immediately, especially if it's an emergency reload. If you're in the heat of a firefight and your gun just went click, oh no, I need to reload really quick. Now in that situation, if it's within like room clearing distance, you want to transition to your secondary. But let's say it's the guy's 50 yards out or something. You really need to reload really quick. You don't have time to fumble for mags on your plate carrier. So what you want to do is flick that old magazine out, go to your support side, pull that new magazine out, get it in the gun, hit the paddle, hit the battle lever, work the charging handle, whatever you have to do to get that gun back in action. Now you're back up and ready to go. That is what's called a tactical speed, or as I like to call it, an oh shit reload. Because that's exactly what you're going to be saying if you ever have to do that. So you want your magazines or your ammunition supplies to be somewhere on your support side. Now again, I'm right-handed, so it's set up for me. If you're left-handed, this would be completely opposite. And also there's arguments about, like, I have my magazines bullets facing backward. I've seen a lot of guys that carry their magazines bullets facing forward, and that has to do with how you grip your magazines. I like to grip mine. Let me move that back. When I reach for my magazines, I like to grab it like this, pull it out of the pouch, get it right into the weapon. Now some guys, whenever they're reaching for it, they'll grab it like this, pull it out, twist, and then get it into the weapon. That is going to be personal preference. There are so many ways to do this. There are 10,000 ways to do everything, guys. As we say in my neck of the woods, more than one way to skin a cat. Again, I can tell you what works for me, I can tell you what works generally, but my way may not work for you. Find what works for you and go with it, because that's really what all this comes down to. So down here, most guys have one rifle magazine. I prefer to have two, because for one thing, I can get this quick speed reload as I just described. I can grab this magazine, get it in the gun, finish what I need to do. Now maybe I'm in a dangerous area. If I've just emptied a rifle magazine and had to reload quickly, I'm probably not in the best of situations. But now my speed reload pouch is empty. I can instantaneously grab this mag, move it up, refill my speed pouch. Now I'm good to go again, and later on I can fish a mag off my kit, refill this. Now another thing that you really want to do is, in a situation like this, you want to what's called orient your magazines, and I'm just going to touch on this very briefly. These are meant for your quick reloads. If you're wearing a battle belt, you should always reload from the belt because it's just that much faster. Now, after you've used that one magazine, don't think that that's it. You can actually pull a magazine off of your kit. I like to get the one that's most out of my reach. Like, again, I'm right-handed, so my support hand is my left hand. On a plate carrier or a chest rig or what have you, the one closest to my left is my secondary speed magazine. That's what I'm going to grab first. The farther to my right I go, those are the ones I'm going to pull out to refill these pouches on my belt, or just move to the front, because that way you always have full magazines ready to go. Now, I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole very far, just a little tip for you, and also little tips and tricks for keeping your belt ready to go. Now, in front of that, I have a double taco mag pouch. These are really good. They're really expensive, but they're really good. It has bungee retention, kind of like these do. These are kind of the cheaper versions. And this holds two 1911 magazines, or any pistol magazine. That's one great thing about this. You can adjust the bungee to fit really any magazine. I've got 1911 mags in here. These will hold Glock mags, HK mags, SIG mags, whatever. All you got to do is put the mag in there, tighten to preference, and you're ready to go. Now, I don't usually keep two pistol mags in here, and there's different schools of thought on this. Again, this is my regular range belt, or just go to hell belt. I just grab this in case of emergencies. What I like to do is keep one pistol mag in there, and usually I'll put a multi-tool or a flashlight in this one, because to my way of thinking, I'm more likely to need a multi-tool or a flashlight than I will an extra pistol magazine. Now, I keep extra pistol magazines in my pouches, and yes, this one is empty, this one's not, this is the one's usually in here. I keep extra magazines either on my person or usually in my pack if I'm planning to go out on a multi-day ruck, or if I'm pulling security where I'm expecting contact. And you can really do whatever you want when it comes to that. Have at least one pistol mag down here, because if you run out of ammo or your gun jams or something happens where you have to reload your pistol, just same concept as the rifle mags. You want that mag to be right there where you can just grab it, insert, go. You're ready to rock and roll. Now earlier I talked about why I like mid-ride holsters instead of say belt level, or guys, the drop leg holster is dead. Stop trying to make it a thing. It went out in the early 2000s. It was never that good to begin with. I hate seeing guys at, especially airsoft meets especially competition, with their pistols dangling down around their knee, and every time they move, it's flopping around all over the place, and can never draw that. Just don't do it. It's gone. It's dead. It's obsolete. Move on. Now, the great thing about a mid-ride holster is, one thing it kind of reminds me of, because I'm a huge cowboy fanatic, I used to do cowboy acting out west, it reminds me of those old Buscadero rigs. And like, you look at any western from the 50s, everybody was wearing these. James Arness, I forget who, James Garner, Clint Eastwood. No, actually, Clint Eastwood wears one in all of his Man with No Name movies, so if you've seen those movies, you know what I'm talking about. The holster always sits right about here, right about pocket level. Let me go ahead and throw this on. And when the holster sits right about pocket level, I don't know if you can see this very well. Let me move the camera. It sits right about there. And that is actually perfect because most people, and again, I'm a big guy, so and everybody's biomechanics are different. Most people, if you just let your hands sit idly at your side, my hand is sitting just below the pistol. Now the idea of the old drop leg holsters was you wanted your hand to sit right there with your pistol, so if your hand is sitting right about here, the idea was, oh, I can just grab that gun and come up. That's actually a bad idea because the way human bodies work, you don't want to actually just grasp right away, or even worse, when you have one of those really low thigh rigs or drop leg holsters, you have to reach down to get the gun. Don't do that. That sacrifices crucial time. And we're talking portions of a second in which you can very easily die if you're being shot at. Now the great thing about mid-ride holsters, and this is why this is preferred by most police and special forces operators, you can actually grab, as your hand comes up, your hand naturally wants to clench. Anytime you get nervous, it's just a quirk of the human body. If you get really, really nervous, your hand wants to clench. That's why you see guys doing this whenever they're really nervous. So if your hand is already closing and you go to grab your gun, step back a little farther so you can see this. If your hand is at your side and you have to draw this weapon, what I just did, very slow motion, you bring your hand up, your fingers are already closing, so you've already got your hands on this grip. Get a good purchase, and this is one great thing about this QLS system. It pushes the holster out just far enough where you can really get a solid grip on the grip of this pistol, because the old ones were pressing right up against your leg. You kind of had to get to about here before you could wrap your thumb around and really get a proper grip on this handgun. But the way these modern pistols, or holsters rather, are designed, you can actually get a solid grip on the handgun before it ever leaves the holster. And then as you're doing this, come up, grab. In my case, I'll flick the safety off. Modern pistols don't have that. Pros and cons. And now I can move in to presentation, get the gun out, I'm on target, boom. When I need to, okay, I'm scanning, I'm good. Now I can reholster. And again, talking about the thigh strap. Watch how this holster wants, actually I'll undo the strap and I'll demonstrate. So, strap is off. Holster's hanging loose. I'm going to draw this holster at about 75% speed. Did you see that? Holster moves. Now, for most people, that's not a big deal. I see a lot of guys wearing a similar setup to this and they'll have their holster up on belt level. Now, if that works for you, go for it. Again, I'm a big guy. I got a little muffin top going on, and yes, I'm working on this. But that can pose a problem because when I go to draw, the way my body is set up, it wants to ride up like this. And also, it's just a really high, slow draw. Coming from lower down, it's a lot easier, a lot faster, and it's a lot more comfortable to get on target. Now, when I put this strap back on, there we go. Same speed. I'm going to draw this handgun. That holster did not move. It is tight to my leg. It is flush. I can holster that. I can draw. See, the holster wants to move. It can't. That's about as far as it can go. So, thigh straps and mid-ride holsters, definitely the way to go in my personal opinion. And also I talked about the QLS system. Now if I want to take this holster off, there we go. Holster and gun are off. I can put this to the side, pick up another one, stick it on there. There we go. Now I've switched out holsters. I may have a completely different weapon system. I may have a completely different holster. I may have something different. But also that adapter is hooked into my thigh strap because there's a screw that attaches it. And that I didn't have to do a thing. Also, it stays in the exact same spot on my belt. So, little tip for you. And I talked about being able to reach your magazines fairly quickly. Now, let's say I'm in a situation, and again, safety checked, where, okay, boom, 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 boom. Oh no, I got slide lock. My gun's empty. Drop that in my pouch. There you go. Let's try that again. See, there you go. Notice how that was right there. I didn't have to fiddle with anything. I fiddled a little bit on that first reload. That's my fault. But you want your ammunition right here, whatever your support side is, somewhere that's pretty far to the front so you can grab it, reload, you're good to go. I've seen some people that actually set up their belts a little differently. Sometimes you'll get those holsters that have the mags on the front of the holster. Really don't like those. They're just clunky. It really doesn't offer any advantage except you have an extra mag on you somewhere. And I talked about how fast it is to get your rifle mag out. See, I got my rifle up. Boom, 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 click. Oh no! That is so much faster than trying to fish a mag out of a pouch on your plate carrier. So much faster. And you notice how I place my empty magazine into my dump pouch back here. Now if I need to, I can pull that magazine back out. Once I'm back at base, I can reload this. Right back in the pouch, I am fully reloaded. If I need to, I can get another magazine, back in the gun, rack it, rock and roll, and yes, empty gun, guys. You can just rack it, rock and roll, back in the holster. Let's go to town. And now you may be tempted to overload your battle belt. Not a good idea. I've seen a lot of guys do this. They'll have stuff all the way to the front. They'll have pouches galore. Some guys like to do the double pouches. I'm not a fan of that. I like to keep everything a little sleeker, a little faster. But again, this will be for you, so do whatever you need to do. Do whatever works best for you. Also, buckles. I just thought of this. I like Cobra buckles because these things are so much stronger. Get a good look at that right there. There you go. Because these things are so much stronger than your average buckle, especially like just a tension buckle, like the 511 belt that I'm wearing right here. These do not work well for heavy loads. They're good for just regular dress or at work or out in the woods or whatever. This is usually what I wear every day. Not good for weight. These are much better suited for weight or even just a regular, like just a heavy dress belt or everyday belt with the old tongue and clasp solution. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you took something away from it. Hope you really realize just how important a battle belt can be. And actually one of the, before I close, I just thought of this. Something I was going to touch on earlier, but I forgot. The reason I love battle belts so much is because belts like this are truly one of the most versatile pieces of kit you can have. I mentioned this before. I say that because this belt is built so that if I had time to grab just this, if I just grab this belt and my rifle, I can fight with this. I can be effective. I have 2 pistol magazines, I have 2 rifle magazines, I have my medical, I have my sidearm, I got some gloves on here. If I only had time to grab this one piece of kit, and maybe this is my, say a car kit, or maybe this is just around the house. People don't know this, but home invasions happen pretty quickly, and if you're like me running around in your skivvies or less, you don't really have time to throw on a plate carrier and grab the gun beside your bed, turn on the light, and go to work. But you might have time to grab this and buckle it on real quick, especially if you're practiced at it. Think about it, just throw this on, maybe not even fasten the thigh strap, but just throw this on, buckle, grab your rifle, you're ready to go. Also, this can work, if you configure it right, with any other piece of kit that you own. I have my plate carrier and my chest rig set up to work in conjunction with this or one of my other battle belts. That's because I can throw this on, and again, have all the basic kit that I need, all the basic gear that I require to fight, to be effective in a bad situation. And I can do that. Now, would I rather have a plate carrier? Oh yeah. Say I'm going from an urban environment to a wooded environment. I live in Missouri. It's pretty easy to do. You drive 5 minutes from anywhere and you're off in the boonies. So maybe let's say I go from, let's go a little extreme with it. Let's say the zombies have risen and it's full-on Walking Dead. I've got this on. I fight my way to my house or somebody else's house. They got a plate carrier laying around. I've already got my ammo, my medical, all that, but I want some armor. So I throw my trusty plate carrier on. 4 mags, radio, knife. I got all kinds of cool stuff on here. Now I can be even more effective and I can have a much higher survivability probability. So now I've got the plate carrier, and the belt. Awesome. Now we're getting out of the city. Let's say the Russians are falling from the sky in addition to the zombies rising from the grave. Now I want to get rid of, or I want to get away from urban settings. I want to go out in the woods. Now I want to get light and fast and quiet. I want to ditch the body armor and go to my chest rig. No problem. I can take off the plate carrier, throw on the chest rig, still have this belt on. This belt still has everything that I really need. The plate carrier and the chest rig are just carrying extras at this point. So you really want to configure your belt to work with all of your other kit. This is just my personal philosophy. So, I guess in closing now, battle belts are, again, one of the most versatile, one of the most important pieces of tactical kit that you will ever have for yourself. If you spend any amount of time setting anything up when it comes to your kit, highly recommend that you spend the most amount of time either on your battle belt or on your pack, which I'll cover in another video. Plate carriers are awesome, don't get me wrong. I love my plate carriers. You saw that in my plate carrier video. I have spent so much time orienting this thing. I've gotten it just about perfect, but not quite, always room for improvement. But guys, if I didn't have time to throw that plate carrier on, or if I lost that plate carrier, or if it was damaged, let's say I took a couple rounds to the chest, my armor doesn't work anymore, so I've got to ditch it. I can still fight with that belt. Again, if I switch from a plate carrier to a chest rig, I can still fight. If I have to ditch everything, if I even have to leave my pack behind, if it is absolute last stand, the zombies are closing in, this is the Alamo moment, well, I've got ammo on my belt. I've got medical. Maybe I'll put another knife on there. You can even put a radio and stuff on there. Something that will keep you in the fight for the longest amount of time possible, that will be comfortable to carry, not on your shoulders, but again in your pelvic girdle region, works so much better. Because if you overload your kit, if you overload your plate carrier like I've seen a lot of people do, wears you out really quick. You're sore, you're tired, you are fatigued, your muscles are to the point of failure. This is why a lot of guys are going down from those big, heavy loadouts that you saw in the early 2000s. Now you look at any show, look at the show Navy SEALs, look at any footage from the what remains of the global war on terror. There's almost nothing on their plate carriers. They got armor and ammo, maybe not even that. So what they're doing is they're getting all that weight off the shoulders, off the chest, and putting it down on the belt. Because again, if they lose that armor, they've still got the belt. They can lose everything. They still got the belt. If you only have time to grab one thing, you've got the belt. So guys, heed my knowledge, or heed my words rather, and stay light, stay fast, and stay frosty, my friends.